Assalamualaikum and hello everyone. My name is Nur Shazwani binti Zainal Abidin and I will be presenting the current trends of bibliotherapy within Malaysian public libraries. In my presentation, I will focus on 6 sections which are introduction, literature review, methodology, findings, discussion and conclusion. First of all, I would like to give you an overview of bibliotherapy. As the name implies, it is reading for the purpose of healing. Or in a long definition as shown on the screen, bibliotherapy can be defined as the process of reading, reflecting on, and discussing books to progress a cognitive shift. It is a non-pharmaceutical treatment delivered as psychological support. While public libraries were introduced to many bibliotherapy approaches, particularly in Western countries, public libraries confront unique challenges, which is the standardization of bibliotherapy delivery. Therefore, this led to the research on what are the current state of bibliotherapy practices within Malaysian public libraries. Next, I will focus on the literature review. Shown on the screen is the table representing 3 sections of content covered, namely the background context of bibliotherapy, effectiveness of bibliotherapy, and bibliotherapy for mental well-being. On the right column, you may see a list of sources for each section. I will focus on the methodology next. This study was carried out with the use of qualitative methods because this study focused on the expert's opinion, which makes it more appropriate compared to the quantitative method. The case study approach is used as an inquiry strategy to explore public libraries' response to the status quo of bibliotherapy in Malaysian public libraries, more specifically the trends, the concepts, and the librarian understanding. In this study, the data was collected using in-depth interview. The informants comprised of 5 public librarians, 2 practitioners specializing in mental health, and a bibliotherapy writer. The participants were selected based on their experience working or exposure to the bibliotherapy workshop or activities. In order to develop the interview guide, a review of the literature was conducted. The questions discovered the view of experts on the status quo of bibliotherapy in Malaysia, particularly in the public library context. This study also asked for experts' views on the suggestion for bibliotherapy practices in Malaysian public libraries. On this screen, you may see a table representing the informant profile of this study. The sample population of 8 individuals consisted of 4 men and 4 women. Most informants had undergraduate education followed by professional, postgraduate, and secondary education. More than half of the informants are librarians of 5 people, followed by 2 health practitioners and a writer. Then I will go on to highlight the current status of bibliotherapy in Malaysian public libraries. Firstly, bibliotherapy is a new trend. The first substatus and most prominent finding are that bibliotherapy is a new trend in Malaysia, as indicated by the responses of 5 informants. Other participants stressed that bibliotherapy have been implemented for decades. However, it is still new in public library environment in Malaysia. The second one concerning the fact that bibliotherapy is an unfamiliar concept. Participant has identified a number of issues related to bibliotherapy practices in the public library setting, including the lack of awareness of bibliotherapy, with most participants raised their concerns about familiarity with the bibliotherapy. Third is the bibliotherapy, the unnoticed practice. This substatus concerns the unrecognized practice of bibliotherapy in public libraries. 4 informants stated that they had practiced bibliotherapy in their workplace without being aware of it until they were exposed. Lastly, librarians' lack of bibliotherapy awareness. The fourth substatus that has emerged is that librarians are lack of exposure to bibliotherapy, and 3 informants have shared the same viewpoint. This study also found 2 merits of bibliotherapy in Malaysian public libraries. Firstly is the debunking of librarian stereotypes. The debunking of librarian stereotypes is a perspective shared by all 5 informants in which the public perception of librarians is frequently negative, especially among young people. Some informants believe that to alter the public's perception of librarians, they should explore and promote bibliotherapy. Next is the new job market. Bibliotherapy librarian emerged as one merit of bibliotherapy as highlighted by 5 informants. A new job market for library and information science graduates will be possible if bibliotherapy is actively promoted and implemented in the public libraries as well as other places. Now, I would like to put this situation into some kind of perspective. The current study found that bibliotherapy is still in its infancy phase. This finding was also reported by two studies dated in 2015 and 2014, in which, according to them, bibliotherapy is new to the Malaysian landscape, and public libraries can play a more competitive role in the process. Secondly, due to its novelty, few people are familiar with bibliotherapy, and those who have only recently heard of it find it unfamiliar. This result is consistent with one study who found that bibliotherapy is a concept that has been heard of but may not be fully grasped. The lack of clarity surrounding the definition of bibliotherapy resulted in the provision of different services under the same name. This terminology ambiguity led to confusion among staff who were unsure if they provided bibliotherapy services despite their awareness. This finding is consistent with one study who stated that each authority provides the service differently, with some personnel uncertain whether or not what they have provided is technically bibliotherapy. In addition, some library staff demonstrate degree of willingness to engage in additional training. This study confirms the finding of a 2010 study that the main barrier to bibliotherapy provision among librarians is a lack of knowledge and skills and mistrust. Similarly, another study stated that a limitation of bibliotherapy is the lack of appropriately trained library professionals to carry out the work. However, this issue may be resolved by the following finding, which emphasizes the importance of bibliotherapy education. Librarians have struggled for a long time to combat certain negative stereotypes regarding their image of profession. But this study found that bibliotherapy is a successful strategy for expanding their territory and improving the public's perception of them. With so many new prospect librarians can join, this demonstrates the new career opportunity for new generations to undertake. I would like to conclude my presentation with few more words. Besides the status quo, this study also answered how bibliotherapy could be introduced to the public library communities through the education systems in Malaysia. These findings provide a broader view and a better understanding of what strategies could take to introduce bibliotherapy to the public library communities. Based on the current perspective, the findings of this research provide insight for the possible actions concerning bibliotherapy knowledge and skills to be considered in order to prepare future librarians before entering the working world. This work contributes to existing knowledge of bibliotherapy by providing the area of knowledge needed by future librarians in providing bibliotherapy services in public libraries. It also can be used as a guideline to develop a bibliotherapy service for public libraries and the stakeholders, specifically the top management, the policy makers, and the educators. However, it is unfortunate that the study did not include library educators as participants to provide insights from the library education context. Despite these limitations, the study suggests that active participation from public libraries and library information science schools are required to ensure that relevant institutions gradually adopt bibliotherapy, particularly for the benefit of the disadvantaged. I would suggest for further research with a greater emphasis on bibliotherapy education in university. That would be all from me. Thank you for your attention and time. I hope you gained some insights from this presentation.